Ago Midasi, Ago Midasi. Greetings. Just a little West African Fonte for you, as usual, every week, just to say hello. Hey, may we have your attention, please? And we are so happy you were here. Thank you very much. Welcome to this All African People's Revolutionary Party focused weekly Sunday seminar. Our topic for today is how to build a political education program. We hope you are at your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual strength. We hope you're just really doing well. And if you're not doing well, we hope that you can have the conditions to get there as quickly as is humanly possible. We are really glad that you're here with us today for this session. This is a very practical session that I think you will leave with some bits that can help you. If that's your objective, to build education for ourselves and our people and for all oppressed of humanity, I think you'll find this to have tremendous value for you. And as always, we want to start by acknowledging the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. And for those that are confused and you have your PhD from YouTube, we are talking about the American Indian people and nobody else when we say the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. Earlier today, I was down at the coffee shop doing some work on many things I have going. And I had on a shirt. The shirt that I had is a picture of Dennis Banks walking while he was incarcerated. And if you don't know, Dennis Banks he's made his physical transition, but he was a longtime leader in the indigenous community, a longtime leader in the American Indian movement. And I'll call him a gentleman, said, "So who is that on your shirt?" And I just said, without even looking up, I said, "It's Dennis Banks." And he said, "Well, who is he?" I said, "Well, he was a leader of the indigenous people." And he's like, "Well, who is that? Who are the indigenous people?" I said, "You know, the people that were here before your ancestors stole it." And he said, "Well, nobody stole anything. Everybody's had something stolen." And I said, "So you don't believe that?" I said, "Because if you did, then that would mean I could stand up right now and take everything from you. And if I decided to do that, there would be nothing you could do to stop me. I could stand up and take everything from you, and you would be perfectly okay with that based on the nonsense you're articulating to me right now." "Well, oh, that's different." I said, "It's not any different. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened to those people. So, you know, when you believe that what I just said about me taking all your stuff is okay with you, then you could spew out that vomit that you just spewed out. But until then, this is the land of the indigenous people, and you're simply a descendant of the thieves that stole it." And then I just went back to doing what I was doing, because that's the kind of dialogue that needs to happen. You're not going to get us caught up in all this nonsense. Critical race theory. There's no such damn thing as no critical race theory. There's history and there's truth. And the truth is, this is stolen land, period. I'm not debating anybody. You got to be out. You have to be a fool to debate something like that. I'm not debating that. That's like debating whether I'm breathing right now. I would be a fool to even entertain that discussion. I'm not going to allow any of that type of confusion to infect my brain and my spirit. This is stolen land. And by the same token, our people were kidnapped and brought here, period. That's all to it. And somebody today, everybody here is an immigrant. Excuse me, we're not, I'm not no damn immigrant. My people were kidnapped. If I kidnapped your daughter and took her to another place and made her engage in sex trafficking, would it be correct to say, well, she's an immigrant in that new? Of course not. She's kidnapped. She's a victim of a crime. That's what all of our people are. All the African people. We're crime survivors here in this society. We're surviving on this land as victims of a serious mass crime. The problem is that the only people that are going to bring justice to that crime is us. So we always give respect and honor to our ancestors, our African ancestors, because that's who we are. Nothing else but that. And I don't even know why anybody would want to be anything but that, because to be an African is a wonderful and outstanding thing. And the only Africans who don't agree with that are always, not sometimes, not most of the time, but always Africans who know absolutely nothing about Africa. So we are honored to carry on the legacy to the best of our ability of our ancestors. And we're glad that you're here for this critical program today to help us talk about how we build political education programs for you locally, whatever way you want to do it, to combat this backward system, because we know that this miseducation system here is never educating our children. And we know that because they didn't educate us. It didn't educate us properly. So all they've done is lie to us. That's why you have all this confusion that we're talking about today, is because of the miseducation system. So the only way to correct that is we have to create our own independent math political education program. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're just glad you're here to join us while we do that. So first, as always, we just go into our brief intros. My name is Ahjamu, longtime organizer for the sponsoring organization, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, all over the world. And joining me is Shukura, my daughter, who grew up in the All African People's Revolutionary Party's Young Pioneer Institute and now participates in the A-APRP as an adult, along with completing her studies so she can do what she is commissioned to do, which is use her education to advance the struggle for the masses of our people and humanity. Absolutely. And getting back to the A-APRP, All African People's Revolutionary Party, our objective is Pan-Africanism. That's what we're fighting for, which we define as one unified socialist Africa, one unified socialist Africa. And if you want to get just a feel for that, the book on the right, the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, written by our founder, Kwame Nkrumah, in 1968. In that book, Nkrumah discusses how until Africa is free, no African anywhere on earth will be free. And to help folks who may not understand, well, I don't know anything about Africa, just think of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. This was a man that gave his life fighting for Africa. He never physically went to Africa. Most people don't know that. They think he was, because of his work, that he was constantly in Africa. No, he never physically set foot on the African continent. So why would he dedicate his life to fighting for Africa? He never even went there, because he understood that it wasn't about him as an individual going to Africa. That's not what this is about. There are many Africans who go to Africa that aren't worth a darn to our people. This is about understanding that our future, wherever we are on earth, and Africa's future are intrinsically tied to one another. So that's what Pan-Africanism speaks to. And the logos there you see are organizations on the ground that agree that one unified socialist Africa is the solution for the problems that African people face worldwide, and are working to form one unified fighting force with all of us to achieve this objective. And we have chapters all over the world, and we work with other liberation movements who are also committed to fighting the enemies of humanity, the international capitalist and imperialist network. So with that said, we're going to move into our topic for today. How do we build political education programs? And to get us started, I will turn it over to Shukura.
Right. Good afternoon, good day, good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We continue to hope that you are in good spirits. And I'm so excited to talk about today's topic, because I think that for a lot of people, it's very, it's very it's very abstract and it's unconcrete. You're trying to figure out, how do you start such a massive entity such as an organization or a work study or a political education program? And we've actually itemized step by step how to do that today. So I'm pretty fired up and excited to talk about that. And I think I can pull in some examples to really help us understand why PE is so important. It would almost be as if you are planning to travel somewhere and you're going to be staying overnight. PE programs are very much necessary, just like your luggage that you pack, your toothbrush and your contact lenses and your glasses and your clothes and whatever else you feel you will need to be comfortable and to survive wherever you're going for the amount of time you'll be staying overnight. A political education program is the same exact concept as traveling somewhere without a luggage. Like, that's basically how You enhance your comfortability in terms of learning and understanding things, and it's a necessity. You need political education, and you need political education programs. So every single week, we talk about political education, but we realize that we never really took the time to break down what that process actually looks like. The book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacists, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence, talks in depth about it, but we decided we would take this week to provide a hopefully clear breakdown on what a political education process actually looks like. The key point to start from this is that anyone who believes that you have all the information you need on an individual basis to combat the backward program of this capitalist system, you are fooling yourself. There is absolutely no area of our lives that is not infected with capitalist propaganda. From our schooling, to our jobs, to our faith institutions, to our social circles, capitalist values are everywhere. Individualism, i.e., a lack of faith in people. A capitalist view of the world, as in viewing everything through a commodified lens. All of this reflects this backward reality. The entire point of organized political education is simply to provide a mechanism to combat the backward propaganda and replace it with revolutionary people who have put people first, so people first principles and practices that will advance the culture and place us in position to improve society as a result. So why is it important for us to value political education and to unlearn capitalist socialization that we have been taught for as many decades that we have been on this planet? Well, for starters, it helps us understand that we cannot build a mass unit, a collective organization, if we are not all fighting together side by side. Why is it important that we fight together side by side? Because that means we need to eradicate any divisiveness, siloed culture that we live in now, where we are not on the same terms with people, or we are not on the same grounds with people for frivolous and unnecessary reasons. So if you have a legitimate reason because someone has caused you threat and you cannot organize with that person because you don't feel safe, that is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is not being able to put aside differences for the greater good that will affect the greater amount of people because you feel this way about X, Y, and Z. And I personally want to share an example of how this can get in the way of us organizing in terms of how we think about our future and how we raise our children. So a while back, I shared this with my dad because, as he has alluded to you, we have a pretty open relationship. I met this person that I decided to date. So I'm a cis hetero female, so I identify as she, her. And so I met this man that also identified as he, him. And he told me that he had 2 children, which I didn't have a problem with. But what I was more interested in, of course, was how he was engaging with his children, what kind of political education he himself had. I asked him on our first date, what do you think about capitalism? Because I'm a very intense person and I want to know if I need to bring a child into this world with you, what are your thoughts on those kind of things that are really important to me, right? So asking him questions like that, getting him engaged, trying to pick his brain to see how critical he can be. And of course, he shared with me about his 2 sons. And I thought, that's fine. You sound like you were in their lives as much as you can be. He's picking them up every weekend, taking them doing things. And then he starts to open up more about his relationship with the child's mother, right? And so this is where we would talk about the problem with divisiveness, because he has so much anger for this African woman. And I'm asking him, why are you so angry with her? And he's telling me, I'm angry with her because she put me on child support. I don't know if you remember this, Daddy. And I said, well, I don't know the situation. I literally just met you. So that's not my place to say why I think she did X or Y or Z. It's not my place to tell you how you should feel about it. But I do want to help you think of it a different way and think about how we really need to think about the system itself and how the system itself, sorry, you all, my washing machine is going crazy, but hopefully it's a little quieter now. We need to think about the system itself and how the system has allowed her to feel like she needs to criminalize you, and the system is very excited to criminalize you because that's what they do for African people, and that's certainly what they do for African men. And he couldn't receive that. He couldn't identify that it was the system. He didn't want to place blame, as he said, on the system. His beef, these are his words, are with her. And so again, my question would be that the system knows that that's how you break people up. The system is very clear. It's not unconstitutional. It's not confused. That's how it happens. So because of that, we need to understand that that's why we need to try to work these things out, especially if we have disagreements and we don't agree with one another about X, Y, or Z. We have to figure that out, because now my concern is, how are they raising their sons together and collectively if they can't even agree on the fact that the system is intentionally targeting them both to not agree on anything, to where they don't want to have any conversations, they don't want to engage. Every time he sees her, he's angry because he has to pay money. Every time she sees him, she's mad because he should have been paying money, because he should have been doing this, because he should have been doing that. So that's all by design. That's not an accident. And just like the FBI and the CIA had targeted ways that they divided up organizations like the Black Panther Party and other such organizations, that's all a systematic approach that we need to not be surprised about anymore. If they're doing it for our organizations that we believe and we trust, like the Black Panther Party, why wouldn't they be doing it for us personally on a personal level in our intimate relationships when we bring children into this world and cohabitate together? So we have to think about that in terms of how that can be problematic, because we can't work together to free Africa if we're not talking, literally, but also if we're not willing to be in the same room together. My second example is, we need to understand that phrases like pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is extremely problematic and is very anti the basis of political education, which is based off of socialism and humane services and principles that value people instead of capitalist profit, okay? So that means you don't think about pulling yourself up by your bootstrap, because as my dad stated a couple of seminars ago, that would indicate that you are so elitist, you assume that no one else can do the job as well as you. When the question becomes, who are you to determine that you can do the job the best, and why is it not okay for you to ask for help? It's funny how, excuse me, in our society, there's all these children's shows that teach children it's okay to ask for help, but somehow we lose that and then we become adults. And I'm just flabbergasted with that, because we get to a point where we have to be so proud. We can't ask for help. We have to be so proud. It's embarrassing. There's stigma. There's something wrong with you. You shouldn't ask for help. You should man up or woman up or they up, non-binary up, like whatever the new patriarchal, non-gender horrible term is to make people feel bad for simply saying, I don't know how to do this. Can you please help me? Where did we lose that? Because when we're 6 and 7, we're taught that it's okay to do it. So I would encourage us to think about that and understand that no one is pulling anyone up by bootstraps, because as my dad said with the example of the indigenous warrior, we all have either had someone what am I trying to say? We've all had someone stole something on our behalves, or we are stolen ourselves, or a product of being stolen. And so because of that, we've had to bounce forward and try to figure things out. So I guarantee you, no one, and I challenge you to give me an example, no one on this planet has completely done every single thing in their life and never needed any guidance or money or support or emotional stimulation from anyone else. That's not possible, because that goes against us as humans, and that goes against us as what we stand for in terms of gravitating towards other humans and talking to other humans. Even if we are introverts, we still have to tolerate humans on a certain level. So with that, I would say we have to think about that. And then the last example I'll give you is, we have to understand that the beauty of political education programs is that we understand that when people lose their jobs, so notice I didn't say if, but I said when people lose their jobs in a pandemic, but even outside of the pandemic, we cannot place blame on them, you all. We cannot say, well, why didn't you have more money in your savings? We can't say, well, why didn't you save up? You knew they were cutting positions. That's bogus. And that's irrelevant. That's not even the point. The point is, this person was depending on that money to keep food on their table for their children, or to keep food on their table for their cat, or whomever they feel is important in their lives. And we are in no position to judge them, A, because we are not farther off than them, because we are one paycheck away from being on the streets. And 2, the system doesn't care about any of us. The system does not care about any of us. So all of us could lose our jobs and be shelterless and starving, and the system would not care. The definition of capitalism is to protect the means of private entities so they can continue managing and making money. If you are not protecting the means of private entities, you are useless to them. You are useless to them, which means they do not care if you are on the streets. I'm fighting right now with my union because our custodians at my university are being expected to work during the summer hours and the buildings have no air conditioning, y'all. What kind of living, working condition is that to not have AC in a building? I don't know if you've been to Memphis, but it is hot in the summertime, okay? It is seriously hot to the point where people are passing out and dying, just like we are hearing about in Oregon and in California. They also don't have functioning water fountains. They turn the water fountains off because their theory is let's save money on the air and the water because nobody is really on campus, when we all know that from a humane standpoint, there are people on campus. So this is exactly my point on why we need political education, because we need to understand that they deserve better working conditions. And we shouldn't have to ask them to turn the water fountain on for some human beings. That don't make no sense. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have to continue to think about how this benefits all of us. Because again, political education is not an individualistic thing. It helps everyone. It really, really does. It's almost like, you have the opportunity to take one marble out of the marble jar, and that's a piece of political education. And then you share that marble with someone else, and you take another marble, and you literally have a line of 1,000 people, and there's so many marbles in the jar that you don't run out. And so each person can take a marble because each part of the political education program is going to benefit every single one of you, if not in one way, dozens more. It just depends on how much you are willing to put into that. So we can't permit ourselves to get sidetracked off of bourgeoisie definitions of organization. 2 or more people is all you need to start a work study group. 2 or more people, that's it. Obviously, we know that many of us are not organized and or consistent on a personal level yet. So the more people, the better. Yes, of course, so that you can maintain continuity, because you will lose people. That is true. Sometimes you might start off with 10, and then the next couple of work study meetings, there's 2 or 3 people that get busy with work or school or their family, and they're not able to join. So you will lose people. But once you have at least 2 or more people, you have what we need, and then you can start to define a reading list of materials. So these materials from the reading list need to cover topics like socialism and capitalism, colonialism, settler colonialism, neo-colonialism, white supremacy and patriarchy, and on a special note, white supremacy and patriarchy as an institutions, those are institutions of oppressions that are appendages to capitalism. So in each category of the books for your reading list, maybe you have subcategories on how you can still group things together and understand that even though you're going to talk about this in capitalism, you probably need to spend some more time talking about it from a microscopic level. So you might want to assign some more readings to follow up with that. Once you establish your reading material and your reading list, then you establish your meeting times and places. It is imperative that you develop a schedule of facilitation that ensures everyone facilitates a meeting in a rotation format. This is so, so important, you all. And the reason this is important is because it's critical to understand that this type of process ensures that everyone will get practice in leading discussions. This is also important because it helps you to eradicate any genderized roles that have been taught by patriarchy that need to be filled by certain people. So for example, if you have someone who is asked to take minutes, some people would describe that as a secretary. And traditionally, we are taught that secretaries identify as cis female people, right? But I argue that non-binary people can take minutes. I argue that cis men identifying people can take minutes. I argue that that's not just a cis woman role to fill. And I also argue that people of color, in addition to cis women, are usually tasked with those type of roles when everybody else doesn't have to be held accountable. And so I encourage us to use this facilitation process because it alternates those tasks, it spreads them out, it disseminates them out, it divides them out evenly. And then most importantly, just because JoJo is really good at taking minutes doesn't mean JoJo should always have to take minutes. Maybe JoJo can be timekeeper next time because JoJo needs to practice taking time. And JoJo also needs to practice facilitating. And JoJo also needs to practice taking minutes. So we want everybody to get a good experience with all the tasks that need to be covered. Why? because it goes back to our point we made before. When some people are absent from the meeting, you don't want just one person who's only done one task because they may not feel comfortable taking on another one. But in a space where you have complete experience with all the tasks, then people are like, oh yeah, I can take minutes, or oh yeah, I can be timekeeper, or oh yes, I can do world geo, because they have experience with that. And if nothing else, they understand that they need to step out on faith, be a little uncomfortable, and try to gain some experience. Yes, you're going to make mistakes. We already know that. I can't tell you how many mistakes I've made in work study. We'd be here all night. I can't tell you, but I can tell you I try to learn from them, obviously. I try not to make them again. And that's all you can do, because you're doing your best. And that's all we ask. This is an ideological training process that helps us develop our facilitation skills collectively. So that way, no one individual is the only one who starts or dominates the meeting. That's the other benefit of that. We don't want people taking up space, and we want to make sure that people can understand why they need to have experiences for different tasks. Finally, your group should have a project you engage in to permit you to carry out concepts you are reading about. It can be something as basic as organizing and handing out meals, to organizing the type of community defense projects articulated in a guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence. It just needs to be something to permit you and your group to do the actual work you were talking about, since that is the entire focus of the group in the first place. So again, never forget why you're starting the political education process. And don't forget, that means you have to start slow and try to figure out as many ways that you can implement unlearning the values that we have been taught. So not making things personalized, not accusing people because they should have saved more money. No one is pulling no one up by no one's bootstraps, because we all need one another. And last but not least, always having a frame of reference for understanding how the system contributes to something. I don't know that particular brother's situation with his child support, so I can't speak to that, but I can tell you that we all need to take responsibility individually, yes, for how we contribute to situations, but always understand capitalism is always the reason for why the outcome is what it is. Even if you decide not to wear your seatbelt and you get in a car and start driving without your seatbelt, capitalism has caused some way, shape, or form for that accident to stress you out when you realize the other person doesn't have car insurance, even though it may have been your fault. There's always a seat for capitalism at the table. So as long as we never forget that, then that means we need to understand, we need to unlearn, because capitalism has taught us that we don't need to think about other people. Asante Sana.
It would help if I unmuted. Thank you, Shukura. So that's the foundation. What is political education, you all? So now we're going to spend a few minutes talking about how you begin a process. And just want to say on top of that, that when we say political education, in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, we have a work-study process. The work studies start out where we meet every 2 weeks. You read 5 pages a day between those 2 weeks, so 70 pages every 2 weeks, right? And you meet and they're assigned book lists. Now, I've been an active participant in this process for 37 years now, but we're not telling you today that you have to join the All-African People's Revolutionary Party's work study process. This is not what this is about. A lot of you, to be quite honest, are not ready to join our process. So that's not what we're doing here. What we're saying is that we need political education in the society. So the point of today is to give you best practices for how you can create your own political education process. If you want to participate in our party work study process, we would love to have you. If you qualify for that, if you're African and you qualify, yeah, sure. But this is not what this is about. So don't leave here. Well, all he tried to do is recruit people in his organization. Some of you, we don't really want to recruit you. You're not really ready to do, this is a serious organization and you got to be ready to do serious work. And that's not all of us. We all know that. So yeah, if you want to do that, great, but please don't misunderstand. That's not what this is about today. It's about how to help you develop your own process. But there are some universal things that you need to have in place. It can't just be your own individualistic thing that you just make up as you go. There are certain things that have to exist. And the first point, as Shukura touched on, is that we have to rid ourselves of these bourgeoisie idealist concepts. And what do I mean by bourgeoisie idealist concepts? Well, idealism, of course, is prioritizing the immaterial over the material, or in other words, believing in something that you have no tangible proof about, just something in your head. Like, for example, a good example of believing in immaterial over material or idealism is if you were to believe that you could stand on the ground and just take off flying without any airplane or anything, just you yourself. That would be an idealistic concept, because I don't know about you, I have never known a human that's done that. So if you believe that, I'd have to see that for myself. But until that, I'm going to believe that that's something that's just in your head, where you have decided to overrun the material conditions, which tell us gravity being what it is and everything, that you can't fly, you can't do that. And that you're believing immaterial, that you can just make up whatever kind of reality you want and be Peter Pan, or what's her name, Tinkerbell, one of them. So that's an example of idealism. Now, where the bourgeoisie part of it comes in is that the capitalist imperialist system is the dominant system in power today. So any type of analysis that prioritizes immaterial over material is, like using the example I just gave you about the flying example, then that means nothing is going to happen when you do that. So if nothing happens because you can't fly, then who does that benefit? It benefits the capitalist imperialist system, because that's the system in power. So if nothing happens, that means nothing is going on to confront that system. And that means the status quo will remain intact and the masses of people on earth will be oppressed. So that benefits the oppressor. So that means that it by definition becomes a bourgeoisie type of activity, because it benefits the oppressor, and the oppressor is the bourgeoisie. So that's why we say bourgeoisie idealism. And a lot of us, we're dominated by that, because capitalism wants us to be dominated by bourgeoisie idealism, because, as I just said, as long as that's the case, nothing is going to change. And they don't want anything to change. They want it to continue going the way it's going right now. So we're dominated by bourgeois idealism. And example one of that is that we feel like we have to create unrealistic expectations. Again, prioritizing immaterial over material. So it's unrealistic. It's not grounded in reality. So we believe things like, well, we have to have everything together before we can tell people about it so that they can get involved. You hear this all the time. Well, we don't want to say anything to anybody till we get it together first. We need to be together. Like, we have this concept in our head that we are the ones, what Shukura alluded to, this elitist concept that we are the ones who can really lay the groundwork. Other people can't do that. They're not qualified to do that. We're the only ones that are qualified to do that. So we have to get ourselves to some point of organization before we can even talk to them, because they can't handle it at the stage that it's at right now. And that's extremely elitist. A much healthier and materially based approach is, look, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Hey, I want to do something to combat this injustice and this oppression we're facing. What do you think? Yeah, I want to do something too. Okay, so let's, you and I, just the two of us, start off. Well, there's only two of us. Yeah, I know. Well, do you have ideas? Because I don't have any. You know what? I might have some ideas, I might not. But I think that the two of us together can figure out some things. I know you, like you seem to have, a really grounded foundation in life, and I feel like I do too. So I think if we spend some time talking and brainstorming, I bet you we can come up with some positive things that we can do. Yeah, I think you're right. And, of course, we know, like, everything that we do is going to be dependent upon us, right? We're going to have to make that happen. And we can, we can recruit as other people as soon as we possibly can, because the more minds, bodies, and spirits, the better. That's a much healthier approach. In other words, abandon this concept that you are the one that has all the answers, and you can't appear to be disorganized to people, so you don't want to say anything to anybody until you have the appearance of organization. That's the problem now. Who cares about appearance and symbolism? We're trying to move forward concretely. So don't worry about appearance and symbolism, and base your work on honesty. So tell people, well, do you have this? Do you have, no, we don't have anything. We got nothing. That's why I'm coming to you. If I had it, I wouldn't need to come to you. So I'm coming to you because I feel like if you and I work together, we can develop all those things. That's the honest approach, because what you're doing with this person is you're telling them they need to own the work and become a part of the process. So if you know that and understand what I just said, you don't need to feel like you have to have 30 people to start a work study, a political education program. If you have 2 or more people, you're ready to start. The only thing that's preventing you at that point is the bourgeoisie idealism in your head. Other than that, if you can get through that, then you can start. 2 or more people is all you need, because you're going to immediately start recruiting more people, because you want to get as many people as possible. But you don't need to feel like you have to have some kind of thing in place that looks good before anybody's going to become interested in it. What should make them interested in it is a fundamental desire to do something to combat this injustice. That should be, if that's not the internal motivation they need, then they're not serious about doing this work. So understand that. Okay, the next thing is, once you have your 2 or more people, then you make a commitment on how you're going to move forward. Well, the basics are, we're going to meet once a month. We're going to meet twice a month. We're going to meet once a week. You determine that, and you make it, and what you determine, you make a commitment to it. I mean, commitment is such a dirty word in this work. Everybody wants to run their mouth. Everybody's got a whole lot of stuff to say. You know, people have plenty to say about any topic you come up with. You all that do real organizing work, you know I'm telling the truth. You go, you have a meeting and you're talking about a problem, and everybody in there has an idea about how the problem should be addressed, how it should be resolved, what needs to happen to correct the problem. Then you move the agenda part of the meeting into taking assignments to address all the suggestions that just were articulated. And now it's crickets in the room. Now everybody in the room has lost the ability to speak. Their vocal cords have become constricted. Now nobody can say anything about anything. And then now this is the part of the meeting when, well, I've got to go. You know, I can't stay. I got to go. If you do this work, you know I'm telling the truth, that this is what happens every single time. At this part of the meeting, the most important part of the meeting, now nobody's got anything to say and everybody's got to go. And so it's so difficult to get anything done. And then even if you have people take assignments, then the next time you're supposed to meet, I can't make it. And then you oftentimes never see those people again. This is what we have to get past, y'all. If you make a commitment, keep it. So make the commitment based on what will really happen. If meeting once a month is the best you can do, then start there. That's still 1 month more than what you're doing right now. So it's still progress. If meeting once every 2 months is the best you can do, then you better commit to do that. Start there and be consistent with that. That's what's important, is developing in the beginning your consistency, not what things look like. We got to get past this, what things look like. That's killing us. It does nothing to advance us. We want to make concrete progress. So whatever that is for you, then embrace that and do that. That's important. And then this question of reading, you all, I mean, can I talk to you all honestly about this for a second? And I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, because this is all of our responsibility collectively. But have you all ever had experiences where you tried to do some political education type stuff and people were so resistant to it, so resistant, they didn't want to do it? Okay, I'm telling you why that happens. And it has nothing to do with any logical, like what kind of fool thinks there's a logical reason why people shouldn't study our enemy? Like a child would understand that if they're having a bully at school picking on them, they need to know as much as they can find out about that person to use it against them, to stop them, to get them to stop picking on them. So there's no argument. There's no logical argument that, yeah, we don't need to study. And then now today, the popular thing is everybody's got some kind of psychological problem that prevents them from studying. And I understand there are people that is probably the case. But I know one thing, most of these people claiming that's not what it is. It's that they're just intellectually lazy, they're undisciplined, whatever the case may be, and they're dishonest. And so they won't just say, I don't have a speck of discipline, so I'm not going to read because I'd rather just watch TV or or watch basketball or do whatever it is I spend my life doing, and I'm not going to read. Nobody's going to be honest and say that. So they come up with all this other subterfuge as to why reading is for the bourgeoisie. That's someone tried to tell me that reading is for the bourgeoisie. That's what they told me. And I told that person when they told me that to go take their medication, because I mean, I'm not going to, that's ridiculous to suggest something like that. You know, that I'm not going to even entertain it. So this reading, a lot of the reason why people don't want to do it, you all, is because people can't read. It's just that simple. People cannot read. And there are plenty of people out here who function very well in society. They're extremely articulate, but they cannot read. I'm telling you. I know this because I've experienced it countless times with people. I've seen people get in fist fights to distract from having to read a paragraph. I've seen this happen. I've had to break up fights because of this. So I'm telling you, people cannot read. They don't read very well. And the reason why people don't read very well, most people, I'm not talking about people who have a legitimate issue that prevents them. So please no need to speak to that. You're not dealing with people who don't know what they're talking about around this issue on that. So please save that for someone that needs that. We're talking about the majority of people out here have no physical, mental, or spiritual reason why they can't read. They just don't want to do it. And they don't, because they don't want to do it, they don't practice it. And because they don't practice, they don't know how to read. It's just that simple. If you want to test that, have people read something, read a collective thing out loud, and you'll understand clearly what I'm telling you right now. You'll see how much people struggle. And that's not a put down of anybody. It's just you can't correct the problem until you acknowledge it and point it out. So what I'm saying is that we need to develop a systemic campaign where we teach people how to read, where people are comfortable reading, because once people are comfortable reading, then we can get past all this BS and start building real political education processes instead of all this, well, books are for the bourgeoisie. I don't want to read. Reading, that's a white man's thing, all that nonsense. We can get past that because now we're addressing that you just don't know how to read. And so because you don't know how to read, you develop this thing when you were in grade school where you started clowning and doing all this stuff to distract from the fact you don't know how to read, and you're still doing that as an adult. We can get past that because we're not playing the childhood games at school. We're fighting for our survival as human beings now. We got to get people ready and able to engage in the type of information we need on a mass level so that we can wage war against these beasts and win and build a better society. We need people to do that, millions of people. So we got to teach people how to read. So the first conversation that you need to have with people, you can have it one-on-one, you can have it whatever way is comfortable, but we got to assess people's ability to read. And we got to create an environment of safety where people feel comfortable saying, you know what, I want to do this, but I'm not that good at reading. There's no crime in that. Someone says that, that's a beautiful thing. There's no crime in that. We're not the capitalist system where we're going to put you down and judge you because you're not imitating the actions of the bourgeoisie. That's not what this is about. This is about trying to get us all moving in the same direction. So once somebody says that, then we can set in place processes. And those of us that do this work, we can give you templates on how to teach people how to read because we've done this. So all of this stuff has to happen. These are the initial things that need to take place. So now you've got 2 or more people, you've got your time commitment, you've decided that, you've got, everybody, has a process for how we can get people reading, how we can help people who have challenges reading get better at it. We've got all that going, all right? So then we have to do what Shukura talked about. We have to set up a process where people rotate responsibilities. And everything she said is true, but another very critical reason for rotating facilitatorship is that this capitalist system, it is outstanding at diminishing people's capacity to believe in themselves. This system is unmatched in making people feel like they have no value on earth. And so when we have a political education process where we have 5 people and someone who Never, and I've had this experience countless times, you all, for decades. People have facilitated a meeting and they will tell you that's the first time I've ever done. I've had people in their 50s facilitate a work study meeting of 3 or 4 people. We're not talking about 100 people. And it was so self-esteem lifting for them to do that. And they told me, I've never done that before. I never thought in a million years I would read something with other people and I would create questions and I would guide a discussion from a book. They've told me that. So now their self-esteem is bolstered. So now we have the conditions where if we just continue doing this, we can create collective leaders. And if we create collective leaders, we will be unstoppable. That's the whole point of political education. That's why it's so important to rotate responsibilities. Everything Shukura said, but also because we got to get people to understand that they have value. And if they're placed in the right condition with the right support, they can do anything. And that's the important thing about this fight that we're waging. So all of these things are important beginning stages to setting up your political education process, and then using the criticism, self-criticism tool that I talk about in the book. But we'll get back to that in a second. But the point here is that you have to be committed to fighting liberalism. And I know, this is capitalism. So, everybody's trained from CNN and MSNBC and Fox and all that nonsense. And so when I say liberalism, people will, the Democrats are the liberals and the Republicans are the conservatives. We're not talking about that bourgeoisie nonsense. We're talking about the actual colloquial term for the word liberalism, which means when you are not willing to engage something honestly. Passive aggressiveness is a liberalism tool. You will not engage something honestly. So you have 3 or 4 people in your group and nobody reads, and it happens over and over. And people tell you, because, this is what happens in this society. Well, I didn't read, I had to work, they're killing me at work, and I had to take care of my kids. This kind of stuff people always say. Like revolutionaries, no revolutionaries have kids. They're the only ones that have kids. No revolutionaries have jobs. They're the only ones that have jobs. They sit in meetings with people who have children, jobs, and more responsibility in one finger than they have in their whole life, and still feel comfortable in this liberal environment saying something like that. And we have to create a culture where that's just not gonna be a go. Like, okay, you got kids, I do too, and I still get my reading done. So let's talk about, maybe there's some ways we can talk about how maybe some of the things I'm doing can help you get your reading done. Or even if what I'm doing won't help you, maybe some other things can help you. And that's what we mean by criticism, self-criticism. That's what that is. You have to be willing to do that. And the reason why you have to be willing to do that is because you're gonna have tons of obstacles filming a political education process. Because again, this whole system is structured based on us not doing that. And so people have all these self-esteem issues, all this stuff that capitalism has imposed upon us. So they're going to try to do everything they can to avoid putting themselves in a position where they're going to be embarrassed, because they get embarrassed every day in the system and they don't want to do that. So they're going to do everything they can to avoid that. So you're going to have obstacles. There's no way around it. So you have to be prepared. If you're a person that the minute you have an obstacle, you get overrun, then you may just leave this alone. Do something else, like play poker or dominoes or whatever else you can do. You cannot do this kind of work because you're going to have obstacles. And if the minute obstacles come up, you're done, then you don't even waste your time, and certainly don't waste our time, because that's just what's going to happen. You're going to have that. And some examples of that are people are not going to be consistent. They're not going to show up. They're not going to read. They're not going to participate. They're not going to do that for all the reasons I'm talking about. So you have to have a process where you can follow up with people. And my rule is 3 and out, I call it, because I'm a baseball player of old. 3 and out. Okay, so what that means is I'll call you, you don't come, I'll reach out to you 3 times. And I don't just mean sending someone an email. Like, make a serious effort to reach out to them. At least a bare minimum, a text message. Like, hey, we missed you, what's going on? And if after 3 times they don't respond, then it's time to move on. But make that effort. Most of the time, we don't make any effort. People don't come and we don't even reach out to them. We just figure, you know, because we have this individualistic methodology in life, and we like, I got to deal with myself. You know, I'm sure they doing whatever they got to do with, but that's not how we're going to be able to move forward. We have to collectivize our efforts. So make that effort to reach out, make that, and not just, it shouldn't just be you, it should be everybody in your group. So if it's 3 people, 2 people should be reaching out to the one that's not there. 3 times each, you should do that. And I guarantee you, at least you'll get an answer if you don't get a response from the person coming to participate in the group. So that's important. And then the next thing is, again, we talked about criticism, self-criticism, is that you've got to be willing to be uncomfortable and raise truths with people. You've got to be willing to do that. Now, does that mean that people are gonna get at you and cause problems and people aren't gonna like you? Well, of course, but why the hell do you care if somebody doesn't like you, if they're not willing to be honest about engaging in our people's struggle? I got tons of people, I tell people all the time, you know, because I'll raise struggle with people and they're like, well, I don't like, you know, and I tell them, well, you can't say that it's not correct. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not in this struggle to make, I have plenty of friends. In fact, I'm trying to get rid of some friends. I have plenty of friends. I'm not in the struggle to make friends. So if you don't want to be my friend, I guarantee you, I'm not going to lose any sleep on that. And I don't have to like you, and I can work with you. I work with a lot of people. I'm not going to sit here and say I like everybody. I work with a ton of people I don't like, and I'm sure they don't like me, and that's fine. We still can work together. I'm going to ally myself with them against our enemies, because that's what's important. My ego is not important. Every reason I'm having an issue with them is not important, and I'm never going to let that be the dominant factor in how I interact with them. But you know, you have to understand that. Like, it's important to raise the bar and make honesty the standard. It has to be the standard. It can't be the exception. Right now, it's the exception. That's why we're having such a struggle moving forward. It has to be the standard. Honesty, criticism, self-criticism. Very, very important. And then ideological disagreement is something that we should pursue, you all, not avoid. Too many times we want to avoid disagreement. Like, what in life do you make progress avoiding struggle? Are you exercising the minute you start to feel any type of burn, you stop? You're wasting your time. You're losing weight. The minute you're on a diet, you get hungry, you just start eating whatever you want to eat. You have to be uncomfortable to move forward. That's a principle of life. So ideological disagreement is uncomfortable for a reason, because that's how we move forward. If you think about it, when you've been conflicted about, I don't have a problem with people, like, you struggle with somebody and they say, I'm really conflicted. That is not a problem with me. I like to hear that, because what that tells me is that a person who will question themselves is an honest person. And an honest person is someone who can improve, who can get better. The person who you can't tell them nothing, they know everything, that's the one that I'm not wasting my time with. You know, I don't mind a person like they say, I need to think about some things. I like to hear that. I'll follow up with them. And then a lot of times those people, like, you know, I thought about that. That's absolutely right. You know, I need to evaluate, I need to change and move to a better position. That's what the process is about. It's like exercise. You lift away, you struggle, and then one day you can do it because you kept trying. So that's what ideological struggle is. So we shouldn't be afraid of that. Don't buy these capitalist lies. We have to fight and learn how to do that. And then, you know, political education, again, we want to whet people's appetite for ideological development. So once we help people learn how to read and get them accustomed to doing it on a consistent basis, then they'll do it on their own. They'll do it with other people. They'll make that a part of their everyday life. And then if you imagine, if we had millions of people doing that, just by that by itself, our quality of life would improve, because people would know a whole lot more. It wouldn't be so easy for people to be fooled by symbolism and all this other stuff that people are fooled by because they're not engaged in anything. So this is how we move forward. If we just start to take these baby steps, you all, that's what we have to do. So there on the left, I have the All African People's Revolutionary Party's ideological training guidelines. It tells you how to set up a work study circle group, a political education group. And you all can, we will share that with you. You don't have to join the party. I know some people are scared or whatever their problem is. We're not, again, that's not the point here. Like, we're trying to get our people engaged in political education. So you just use the template, just reach out. You can reach out at the site there. And while you're there, make a donation, by the way. But you can reach out at the site and we can send it to you. Or you can just get it online, because you just type in A-APRP, Ideological Training Guidelines, it comes up. The intent of this work, again, is to prepare ourselves to organize our people. That's why we do it. And because of that, you're going to make so many mistakes. As Secretary said, the African whose picture you saw in the last 2 slides, the only people that don't make errors are people that don't do anything. So if you're making errors and you're sincere in your effort, you have nothing to worry about, because another thing Secretary taught us is that quantity makes quality. The more you do something, the better at it you get. And that is universally true. And also, as Comrade Fidel Castro told us correctly, sincerity is the only requirement for leadership. Sincerity, you all, is the only requirement. It's not knowledge, because you can gain knowledge. You go through these steps we just went through, you're going to gain knowledge. Anybody can do that. That's not any special person that goes through those steps that gains knowledge. Everybody can do that. Anybody can do that. But you cannot teach someone sincerity. That's something that has to result from an internal dynamic within you. It has to be your drive for honesty and integrity and having the courage to achieve those things. Nobody can teach you how to do that. You have to want to do that yourself. So I believe Fidel Castro was 100% correct. I'll take 1,000 people who are sincere that don't know anything over 3 people that think they know everything. That's just a no-brainer to me. So don't worry about what you don't know. That's not the point. That's why you're engaged in political education. You will know if you do that. And again, as we said, we'll give you our template to help you to learn how to do that. We'll help you do that. There are people on here who I have participated and done that for, and they didn't join the A-APRP, and some of them were not even African, so they couldn't join the A-APRP. So please don't leave here and think that and say that, because that's just not true. We're trying to get our people engaged, and all other people who believe in justice, in doing this work. That's the main thing that we're doing here with this conversation. And whatever tools we have to help do that, that's what we want to use them for. And that's all we want to use them for. So again, if you all do this work, you know that we got a lot of people that talk. We got a ton of people that talk, and we don't have nearly as many people who do. And so this is an easy bridge between the two, the talk and the doing, because we just start you off with engaging in some study around these concepts. And anybody can do that. And again, we're not telling you how to set your group up. You set it up the way you want to set it up. We're just telling you that it's something you need to do. And in terms of what books you have, you can decide what that is. We can help you with that if you need it. We've said that 1,000,000 times. We'll say it 1,000,000 more. We can help you do this, but we just can't do it for you. You have to have the desire to make it happen. So hopefully this session today has inspired people to say, hey, I want to start a study group. I want to do this. And I just don't know how to make it happen. Then reach out. abetterworld.me. It's right there in the middle of the page on the left. Drop a donation while you're there. Don't go to the capitalists and expect them to do everything, and they're trying to profit off of you. You come to them with your checkbook out, and then when you come to us, you want us to give you the whole world, and you don't want to contribute anything to our work. And we're not even profiting off of you. We're using what you do to provide our basic needs so we can continue doing it. So don't be so stingy. Help the people help themselves. So go to betterworld.me, reach out, get that help, donate. Go to AAPRP-intl.org, donate, and join the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. And we've got all these podcasts coming at you that you see there. Pontula, Forward Ever, Revolutionary African Women. We have our comrades in New Mexico, noon. It's noon on Thursdays, the newscast every week. Next week, we'll be doing our 76th broadcast in a row, 76 consecutive weeks of doing this. Next Sunday, the 18th, from 4 to 5, we had a session a couple of weeks ago, Zionism, sabotage in Africa. We're following that up with best practices for African solidarity with Palestine next week. Best practices for African solidarity with Palestine. And we want to again continue to invite you to buy my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. It's got an infinite amount of knowledge and information in it for only $8 capitalist US dollars, $5 capitalist US dollars if you buy the digital version. So get it, use that book to start your study group. That can get you going. So all you need is $8 and a friend, and you can start a political education program. Now, what more could you ask for than that? We appreciate you spending your time with us today. We hope to see you at this one and others this week. Join Hood Communist Telegram event this Thursday at 4:30 Pacific time. We're going to be talking about African identity. Just sign up for Telegram. It's a free application. You can get it. You want to do that? We do it every other week. You can participate in the discussion there. Do that, please. Very important work going on there with hoodcommunist.org. So we invite you to participate. Please do support independent, revolutionary African analysis. If you don't do it, I don't know who the hell else you think is going to do it. So we need you to do it and spread the word, please. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Forward ever, backwards never. Always stay clever in each and every one of your endeavors. Capitalism is a vicious backward system. It's got to go. White supremacy has got to go. Patriarchy has got to go. Homophobia has got to go. And you already know Pan-Africanism, faux show. See y'all next week. Have a good rest of your Sunday afternoon.